Novozymes is a bio-innovation company. We produce enzymes and microorganisms for industrial use. So in your everyday life, enzymes has gone into producing your wine, your juice, your detergents, your fuels, feed for animals, and so on. It's actually used in over 40 different industries. It's a protein that catalyzes changes to happen really fast.
Changes.
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 Changes don't always start with politics.
Changes start with you and me.
The smallest things
can make a difference.
If we all do it.
Even washing our dirty laundry at 30 degrees.
30 degrés.
30 gradi.
Did you know by washing at 30 degrees
instead of 60,
we can actually wash away
the amount of CO2 produced by 3 million cars.
3 million cars!
If every household in Europe goes from 60 to 30 degrees,
over 1 year,
it can happen.
It can happen.
This is just one way
to reduce CO2.
And it's so simple.
So tell everybody that you do 30 and join us on Facebook.
I do 30.
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 We do 30.
We do 30.
I do 30. Oh.
Quite obviously a lot more entertaining than me, that's why I brought these people along. So this is what I work with as a sustainability manager within the marketing department. It's about enabling sustainability to become a driver for our innovation, our differentiation, and the solutions we bring into the market. And washing at 30 is one thing we enable, which can make a difference, as these people show you. So we covered that one in the meanwhile, what we do. So let's move on to what is this thing about washing at 30, and why is that interesting and important? It's such a little thing you do in your everyday life. The approach we take to sustainable innovation is that you have to look at the complete value chain, or take a systemic approach, or take a life cycle approach. It's sort of the same thing. We're out in the very front end producing a raw material and an ingredient that goes into a product that we all use, and ultimately this is just something banal we do in our everyday life. The interesting thing here, sustainability-wise, is that we can produce a nice ingredient, but ultimately the impact on the environment, big or small, comes from how we use the product. If you look at the CO2 impact in this value chain, 20% of the carbon emissions comes from producing the raw materials. Only 10% actually comes from production and retail and transportation and so on. But the really big impact, and where the big reduction potential is to actually reduce the temperature as a consumer. And for someone who wants to create a sustainable product, this is part of the challenge, when the impact lies a completely different place in the value chain than where you are yourself. So small changes can make a big difference. This requires, from our point of view, we can make technology development, we can enable something to happen, but it also takes this behavioral change to actually make an impact ultimately. I thought the pig yesterday, the pig 05049 case that won the prize, was an example of how we're starting to get interested in looking back into the chain and as consumers as well, and understanding what's what's going on. But it's still a big challenge. And what this also tells us is that this behavioral change is still a barrier. Only 39% of people in Denmark wash at low temperatures. So even though it's so easy, this behavioral change is still a barrier that needs to be overcome. And we need easy everyday choices that are not more expensive than what we have today, and still they have to be more sustainable. That is the challenge we're working with. If we take it up a little bit on a grander scale, then we have a common long-term interest in creating sustainable solutions. That's also why we're here today, because we think that we together can aim for this. But short-term, there are several challenges in this. Now you can't really see this, but this reads fat-free water. Okay, fine, fat-free water. This is part of this business challenge about translating what, on a global scale, if you take this value chain approach, makes a more sustainable solution, and translate that into something that's relevant for an end user or a consumer. So today, CO2 equivalents and all that is becoming common language, and it's something we start to relate to. We don't quite know how to compare products on the parameter, or whether water is fat-free or not. But there are, if we take the enzymes, there are other benefits as well that we cannot today translate into consumer benefits, because they're not local, they're not really relevant for me in my everyday life. For instance, if you put enzymes into detergents, you use a renewable source rather than a non-renewable petrochemical derived. It has a much higher degree of biodegradability. It disappears really fast. It has very little impact on the aquatic environment. But all these things I cannot translate into a consumer benefit today. But on a global scale, it would be a better solution. So 2 things. Greenwashing is a risk, and there's also a risk of creating less than optimal solutions. So my questions to you, and I hope to really learn from you, coming from this sort of back end of the value chain, is how co-creation can contribute to creating more sustainable value chains. And also, what are we actually learning in these processes that you are working with about incentivizing behavior and influencing perceptions of what is sustainable or not? Thank you, and sorry for the time.